Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the channel, Detroit Poker. My name is Brian. This is episode 3 of my video series on how to beat 1-2 no limit hold'em. Starting point for break-even and losing players and players that don't have a lot of experience. If you missed the first episode or two, I will put a card right up here. That'll take you back to episode number 1 if you want to get started at the beginning. But if you are caught up, then let's proceed with this video. Alright, so this video is about implied odds and set mining. So there is a rule that has been cited on Card Player, and I've read it in several places. I think this rule is called the 10-20-30 rule, and it refers to implied odds. So before we even get into 10-20-30, we're going to explain what implied odds means for those of you that don't know. Implied odds means if you are calling, let's just say for example, you are calling $10 before the flop and your opponent has $100 left and you cover. So you call $10, your opponent has $100 more. That is 10-to-1 implied odds. That means you stand to win 10 times of your initial investment of $10 if this guy stacks off after the flop to you. So that is implied odds in a nutshell. Now where the 10-20-30 rule comes in is, we'll go over the 10 part first. So 10-to-1 implied odds is for set mining only. And that means if you are limping in and calling a raise, or just calling a raise with a pocket pair and you're hoping to hit a set, it can be a pretty lucrative opportunity at 1-2 tables because no one ever folds. So if you make a set and you play it right, you stand to win a lot of money. So 10-to-1 implied odds minimum for that. So if you were going to limp and call a raise, if your opponent raises to $15, there needs to be at least $150 in play after the flop for you to win, to make that $15 investment worth it before the flop. If you find yourself like calling a $50 raise from a $200 stack with pocket fours, you are going to lose a lot of money over the long term because you only flop a set like roughly 1 in 8. And if you're calling with 3-to-1 implied odds, you can see how that would be a losing proposition over the long term. So don't do that. So the next part of the rule is the 20 part, and that refers to suited connectors, like hands like 6-7 suited, 7-8 suited, 8-9 suited, 9-10 suited, etc. The rule as it applies to suited connectors is 20-to-1 implied odds. So once again, if you're calling a $10 raise, your opponent would need to have $200 behind to make risking the $10 in the first place worth it. The third of the 10-20-30 rule is the 30 implied odds, and that pretty much goes for suited gappers and like really speculative hands like Jack-9 suited, Jack-8 suited, 5-8 suited, things like that. These are hands that are, most of the time, they're just going to flop like weak pairs, and like once in a great while, you'll flop a really disguised straight with them, but it's very rare. They don't make a lot of nut straights. They make second nut and nut straight, and definitely pretty speculative hands to play, and that's why you need such a high implied odds. So if you're going to call a $10 raise before the flop, you guys should be playing at least $300 after the flop. So 30-to-1 implied odds. You are taking a big risk investing money with a hand like this before the flop, and there needs to be a big payout. And not only does there need to be a lot of money behind, I mean, it's also kind of important that your opponent has a hand that you think that he's going to stack off with if you make the call. Like, certainly you've seen people at a 1-2 table and you just know that they have aces or kings, and maybe you've come across that spot. They just, you know that they're really strong, and this guy is going broke 100 million% of the time if he like has aces, and you're pretty sure that's what he has, and you know how some people just give away the strength of their hand? Like, that's a good scenario to play in an implied odds situation. But against someone that raises 50% of their hands and maybe they get away a lot post-flop, that might not be a good target to limp in and try to make a big hand, because they might not even pay you. So you got to keep that in mind when you're following this 10-20-30 rule. This is operating under the assumption that your opponent has a hand strong enough that you're probably getting paid off. And that's definitely up to you to judge what kind of hands these people have and whether or not you're going to get paid. Otherwise, we're probably going to be bleeding a lot of money if we're making calls and we don't have the correct implied odds. And the reason why I think it's really good to follow these implied odds rules is because you just simply play too many hands if you don't. That is pretty much going to do it for episode number 3. In episode number 4, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to pay attention to the action at the table, how to anticipate things, and how to kind of like label opponents into certain groups so you can more effectively play against them in, implied odds scenarios, and when to call the raises, when not to call the raises. If you like this video series so far, definitely leave me some feedback. I'd certainly appreciate some comments, and thumbs up, thumbs down if you want to catch the next one. I would certainly encourage you to subscribe to my channel and click the little bell, and YouTube will alert you when I upload the next video, which should be in about 24 hours. See you in the next one, guys. Part number 4.